Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. Soon it'll be 2019, and it's a very rainy day here in Ohio, and I decided to take a video of it and to show you guys how, I guess it depends if you like the rain or not, how pretty you consider this, but I'll cut to the rain real quick. Hold on just a second. So I hope you guys enjoyed the rain. Um, that was taken a little while ago, and it's been raining since early this morning, and it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon now at the time of recording this, and it's still downpouring. I can hear it outside pretty heavy, or that the rain is pretty heavy. Anywho, I decided not to do so much of a wrap up as what I'll be reading next year. I did finish one book and I'm almost done with another, and I'm going to count that just for my December wrap up on on BookTube, just because it might be a little too much once January comes around and I try to do a wrap up then. The first book, the one I truly did finish yesterday, was The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I was debating for a while whether to continue the series. I'm still going to read the series, The Two Towers and The Return of the King, because I have finished The Hobbit and now The Fellowship. But the thing was, I was debating whether I should just continue right after I finish The Fellowship. But since the read is more heavy, for lack of a better term, I decided to read something else for a little bit and then come back to The Two Towers at a later date. Because I feel, unless you're really into high fantasy, I feel like you could get burnt out on the series really quick. Just because it details so much of the history and like the languages, the songs in it, and some minor parts of the adventure. Even sitting through the movies, it's hard to go one in after the other. So I am going to take a short break from the Lord of the Rings series, but I did finish Fellowship. I do recommend it, especially if you have a love of fantasy and a love of history, or mythology. I feel a lot of that's interwoven. I know J.R.R. Tolkien was a medievalist or studied medieval history and literature, and you could very much tell that in the books. And I wouldn't say it comes off as pretentious, but you really do have to pay attention. You really have to stay focused on that. That's what I mean by a heavy read. You can't really wonder. You can't really away from the book, or it's hard to read another book besides that to make sure you keep everything straight, or at least it was for me. The second book I read, let me get it on here. I just have pictures on my phone just because I was reading it on my Kindle, and that was Undivided by Neal Shusterman. And that it's the fourth book in the Unwind series. I won't go too much in detail over that. If you've watched my last couple of videos, I've been reading that series like one after the other. It's a young adult book, but it's very good for adults too. It's the storyline, the character development, the issues that it takes up. I wouldn't say for all ages, but for 15 and up maybe. But I guess that depends on your reading level as well. But basically it takes place in a near distant future, and basically abortion's been outlawed due to a war called the Heartland War. And basically, to make up for this, they decided to where they can, like, bad use or use unwanted by society between 13 to 17, their parents can sign an order to have them unwound, which means they use like 99.98% of their body parts. And they divide them up, like they cut them up and they donate all their organs to somebody. So technically, they don't really kill them, but they're living in a divided state. So all of them are still alive. Like the kids who get unwound they are considered alive by the government. And basically, this whole series deals with three main characters, and some come on in the first part of the book, kind of go away, and then some get added on later in the book. But there's three characters: Connor, Lev, and Risa, who stay consistent throughout the whole series. I highly recommend it. I don't want to go too much in detail with book 4 since you would have to read the first 3 books. The books do stay consistent. It doesn't really, like, you do have to have read the last book. It's not something you can jump in mid-series. You have to start with book 1 to go into book 2 and so forth. But I highly recommend it if you have not read this. I don't want to say wonderful series yet, but very thought-provoking series. Okay, just a second. So I've decided to do something a little different this year. I decided I want to read 13 to 14 books, like, for sure this year. I feel like it helped me to be more consistent throughout my reading. And so I wrote it down and I picked one out of random, and I'm probably going to start it today. I may hold off till tomorrow, that way technically it'll be the new year, but it's not a big deal to me if I don't. So those are the books I'll be discussing that I'm going to read, just a little quick synopsis, and then when I eventually read them, I'll give reviews, or at least what I thought of them, like a mini book review. So, the first book I'm going to read this year, and this one I remember because I seen the movie, not this year, about like 2 years ago, and it was a movie in 1965 with Christopher Lee. I remember, and it's not Dracula. I remember seeing it. I want to say it was on Turner Classic Movies, because I still have this. I really like older movies, old classic Hollywood and so forth. But I remember a movie called She, and that was based on a novel, because on Turner Classic Movies, they usually have a host come out and explain a little bit about the movie, about the actor, about the history of all that. And I remember they had a book, and I had it on my wish list, and I did buy it. So this is what it is: She, by H. Rider Haggard. And from what I remember about it, this exploration team goes down to Africa, and basically they find this hidden cave, which is kind of like a lost world. And there's the Great White Queen, and she's like somehow discovered immortality, and they believe she has magic powers. And she holds like the people who were exploring these caves hostage or whatnot, and they're trying to get back home or whatnot. From what I remember, that's pretty much the basis of that book, and that's why I chose it, and hopefully I'll get to it this year. Okay. The next two don't need too much of an introduction. The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, since I have just finished The Fellowship, and Return of the King. I want to finish the complete Lord of the Rings series. I know there's some side novels with the Sam Marillion, The Adventure of Tom Bombadil, so forth, and I do eventually, later on in life, want to read some of Christopher Tolkien, which is J.R.R. Tolkien's son, some of his books that deal with Middle Earth. Um, the next one has been on my to read list for a while, like a long while, and I realize I haven't read any V.C. Andrews novels like forever and a day. And I really like the style of writing, including the Ghost author. I know there's some controversy with V.C. Andrews and the Ghost author because some of the people like the Ghost writer, some don't. I personally do. I tend to like the stories that involve like Southern Gothic situations, and honestly, I like when the character is usually female. Gives me a different perspective. So this one apparently, I know this. It's a Lifetime movie now. I have seen the Flowers in the Attic, like the whole series. I have it on DVD of that one of the Lifetime movies. I kind of thought it was well done. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. Usually I'm not big into Lifetime movies, but the series was pretty good. And they made a movie in this one. I haven't seen it yet. I want to read the book first. And that's my sweet Audrina. My apologies. And this is the cover from the movie. And I don't actually have the physical book. I'm going to be reading it on the Kindle itself. And right after that one, since V.C. Andrews is a little bit of a lighter read, this one you can consider non-canonical with it if you don't tend to, if you believe V.C. Andrews herself, like her books ended with her and not with the ghostwriter. But I don't, and I'll take a dive at it because usually my sweet Audrina was considered a solo novel, but later on, about 2014 something, I want to say the ghostwriter did write Whitefern. See if we can get that on there. Which is supposed to be the sequel of my sweet Audrina. And I am going to read that back to back. So if I pick it out at random, and I already know my next book, and it's just going to be the sequel because it is such a little lighter novel than Lord of the Rings is. And this one is, the next book is called Solitude, A Return to Self by Anthony Storr. And this one is a nonfiction book. I don't know if self-help is right about it, but basically it's a novel just basically saying, or a book explaining the need for people to have alone time, that regardless of who we are, when we have alone time, we tend to be more creative. We tend to rejuvenate more, especially for people who are considered more introverted. And it explains like historical figures like Kant, Beethoven, Mozart, how they use their alone time to create great works of music, of art, of literature, what have you, when we are alone to process our own thoughts. So I am looking forward to that, and that is going to probably be my only nonfiction book this year. I do plan on reading on some novels on the side, more audiobooks. So, but this is one for sure I'm definitely going to read, and it's the only nonfiction book that I have for sure that I want to read this year. So the next book I plan on reading, or the one I'm going to start for the new year, I've already decided. And that is A Journal of Sin by Darryl Donaghue, which is, let me just check the name, the first in the Sarah Gladstone detective series, mysteries, however you want to word it. Basically, it involves a small town where a priest has been murdered. I want to say it didn't say in the description. I don't want to read too many. I don't really like reading reviews before I read a book, just in case it gives away too much. but it's somewhere in England, Scotland, or Ireland. I'm not too sure per se, but it's about a murdered Catholic priest, and they don't know why the town's killed him. The town can't get funding to investigate the murder. They believe serial killers on the loose. And the townspeople aren't too happy because I guess the priest has written down all the sins that they made in the confessional, and somebody's either found the paperwork or someone knows of it or the town knows of it. I'm not quite sure. Since it's been raining today and today just feels like a good day for a mystery novel for 2019, this will be the first book I'm starting this year. The second book is How to Tell Toledo from the Night Sky by Lydia Netzer. This book was talked about 2 years ago, and I added it to my wish list then, and I actually bought it then, about a year or two ago, and I just never got around to it. Basically, it deals with two astronomers, and they're in an observatory in Toledo, and I doubt it's Toledo, Ohio. I think it doesn't really say where. But basically they meet, they fall in love. There's a lot of science and stuff involved. But to come to later on that their parents are like best friends. So they decide to raise them apart and basically make them soulmates to each other. And the moms are trying to get them together by, I guess, raising them in the right social atmosphere. So it's an interesting concept, one I've never really thought of before. I've heard very positive reviews on it, and hopefully it doesn't disappoint. I don't know exactly when I'll get to it, but within this year for sure. The next one is How to Paint a Dead Man by Sarah Hall. These are all ebooks, by the way. That's why I'm just showing you. This one, I don't know hardly any of the premise for it, except it involves a painting, and it's multiple short stories, but all the short stories connect to a bigger story or surrounding this painting. That's basically the gist of that one. It seems interesting. Hopefully, I'm not disappointed with that. Next one's James Baldwin, Another Country. Let's see if you can see that right there. This one's probably a little more serious novel, one I've been wanting to read for a while. It was written in the early 60s, and it deals with a main character who's African American, who's a jazz musician back in the early 60s, late 50s, and basically he goes to France, like he gets invited to France to play jazz, and there he has relations with a white girl or white woman, and he also, I believe, has homosexual relationships with a man, and he comes back to America, and basically, since he lived in Europe for so long, he was treated a little better, regardless that he was black. And so he kind of it goes with his process of coming back to America and dealing with the issues of that time, and also dealing with sexual issues either with interracial or with homosexuality. It sounds like a very thought-provoking novel. Honestly, I don't know what to make of it. This book probably will most likely be in my top favorites of this year, or of 2019. I guess we'll see in next December. But yeah, that's the novel. This one's a light read. It's a YA book. It's called The Clockwork Scarab by Colleen Gleason. And it deals with the sister of Bram Stoker and the daughter of or the niece of Sherlock Holmes. And basically they're going to solve a Egyptian mystery museum type thing. Sometimes I like light literature. I mean, it's kind of nice just to break away. Not everything you have to read is heavy. Or has to be thought-provoking. Sometimes it's just nice to escape a little bit of reality. So, basically they team up and solve a mystery. It is a series. If I finish all 12, or if I finish the 12 books I want, I'll probably go more into this series just for a little bit of light reading. And let's see. That is it with all the ebooks. Let me get my actual physical 2 books that I'm going to be reading this year, hopefully, and I'll be right back. So my last 2 books that I want to read by the end of 2019. The first one is The Paris Architect by Charles Belfoure. That one. I had this book for a while. I want to say I bought it back in 2014? Maybe 13 or 14. And it takes place in 1942 with this architect who's pretty much strapped for cash. The Nazis have already occupied France and Paris at this point, and a wealthy Jewish man offers him a lot of money to basically build him this elaborate maze to hide him. And he does it because he's not a fan of Nazis since they invaded Paris, and he needs the money. But apparently something goes wrong, and they discover the area, but I guess not the man. I'm not sure if he has a family. The back of the cover doesn't really say. But basically, the architect has to decide how to help him or how he's going to help him, and that's what the premise of the whole book's about. Sounds like a good read. Usually, I do enjoy. I don't want to say enjoy. I think it's important to read Holocaust books or books about the Holocaust every now and again. It is hard. I believe it's important, even if it's fiction. Like, not all of them have to be like non-fictions to get the meaning across and the importance of treating humanity with respect and dignity, no matter race or religion or any other things that superficially divide us. The next one is one of my favorite books. Well, the author of my favorite book, one of my favorite books of all time, is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. I want to say his name. If I'm saying it wrong, I do apologize. But this is what I received for Christmas, is The Bridge of Clay. Signed copy. I don't know how true that is, though. I mean, here's the signature if you guys want to see. I mean, I don't know. I highly doubt that he really signed it. Maybe it'd be cool if he did. But I kind of wonder, like, why did he sign all these books? But it's been 10, 15 years since The Book Thief came out, and he never came out with anything since. Maybe the publisher's trying to make him say, you need to write faster, so you have to sign all these books after you've finally written a novel. I kid. I mean, I couldn't. The Book Thief is very heavy. You can tell he really did his homework with that. So I'm really excited to see this book. It's about 5 brothers, and I guess their father disappears for a while, and the father comes back, and it's the main characters. I want to say it's the youngest brother named Clay, and it's about his dealing with his family dynamics. And that's pretty much all I gathered from it. Something about Greek literature with the grandfather as well, or Greek mythology. So, looking really forward to this. So glad I got it as a Christmas present this year. Very excited. And that's about it for this video. I always want to do shorter videos with these, but I guess when you start talking about books, you kind of, well, at least for me, you tend to rant a little bit. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. I hope your 2008 was the best year it could have been. If not, I hope things improve this year. I hope you guys find many books to enjoy. If you read any of these books or consider reading them, let me know down in the comments. My Instagram and Goodreads account will be listed below, as well as the books I mentioned. I'm just probably only going to do title and name of the title of the book and the author, just to save time. A quick Google search or Amazon search or whatever book service you can use, you can usually find it that way. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you like videos, give it a like, and thank you guys. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Happy New Year, guys. Bye.